right, welcome back to another episode of the Strong New York Podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Santucci, and on the Strong New York Podcast, we discuss everything from business to wellness and everything in between. And one of the things that I was just talking to the good doc about is that I do not trust a doctor, a dentist, or any professional that I trust with my health who doesn't work out. And today, I have a man who lives that better than most others, Dr. Jonathan Levine, the owner of Smile House here in the city, and they are changing the game when it comes to oral health and wellness.
Yeah, connecting the dots, oral health and overall health.
One of the first things I wanted to ask you about, not even just from the health side, from an aesthetics point of view, there's a lot about how we breathe and things that we could do to change the aesthetics of our face. I don't know, I've been watching this on TikTok. There's like massages that you could do to the top of the jaw. There's different breathing techniques, things that you could do to your cervical spine. What's the truth on that? I mean, is there something to that?
There is something to it, and has everything to do with breathing. Because if you're breathing well, if the structural components for breathing, which is nose, the form of the jaws, the size of it, the way the palatal tissue goes down the throat, and the circumference of the airway allows us to nasal breathe with a big open airway. If you can nasal breathe with a big open airway, you get into deep reparative sleep. You're preventing high blood pressure, cognitive function problems, and all these inflammatory chronic diseases that happen when you can't get into that deep sleep. So the very short answer is that we can detect these structural problems. The development of the jaws, today we know this, we didn't know this 10, 15 years ago, happens by both putting good force on the back of the teeth in the developing baby and bottle feeding versus breastfeeding. In the breastfeeding, You're getting a suckling, you're getting a tension in the lips, and it's helping the jaw development. Because if you look back on the jaws of 400 years ago, they didn't need wisdom teeth extracted, and they didn't need orthodontics. They had these big, beautiful arch forms. Think of the tongue living in a space of only a studio apartment, but it really needs a penthouse space. The tongue needs to come forward and get right behind the front teeth when we go to sleep. In other words, to bring the tongue forward opens the back of the throat, opens the airway. So the jaw size, which is our real estate as oral health professional, dentists and dental specialists, is an area now that we take a very deep analysis. When we see these new patients, we really want to understand all of these structures and how do they work together for optimal breathing, which means optimal deep sleep.
Well, why do you think this was overlooked for so long?
Some of it is knowledge, that we didn't know it. Some of it is how long adoption takes in healthcare. So in all of medicine, it's at least 17 years, and I would say dentistry, you can add about 4 or 5 years to that. So how do you take mainstream ideas like the connection of inflammation in the mouth and inflammation in the body? How do we take all of these concepts, and that one's been around 20 years, and how do we put it into mainstream, both for the consumer to understand, but really for the professionals to understand? And so it takes a long time, and all of these services that people could do in their different disciplines. Think of healthcare as so verticalized. How do we integrate it? How do we combine these specialties so that we're collaborating and working together so that we improve the outcome of our patients? So sleep, airway, jaw size, nasal, circumference, all these things can be diagnosed, and then there are things we can do working with our medical colleagues, dentistry and medicine working together bi-directionally, meaning we can look at each other's data, not here yet, but coming, so that we can really understand here's what people are facing, and this is how we solve it. And the earlier you get upstream, the more we can get to a wellness thinking mindset, not waiting for people to develop these downstream sickness diseases will save this economy, but also save people's lives.
Well, I think that's what people overlook so much, is they see the expense right now, and they see it as, oh, this is way too expensive, it's just my teeth. They already have this preconceived notion that I shouldn't have to spend this much. But it's the preventative care that's gonna save them so much more later on down the road. Now, you're one of the first people to start doing it here in the city, and it's this 360 approach to everything when it comes to oral health care. Why do you think there haven't been so many people to adopt this? Because now we do understand this. We're starting to notice that it's an aesthetics issue, it's a health issue. We need to start taking better care of our mouth and our health overall when it comes to like what we're eating, you know, how we take care of oral dentistry. For me, I was one of these people, I hated going to the dentist.
Yeah.
You know, I came down to you guys and it was, and I'm not even just saying this because you were here, it was an enjoyable experience. It was great.
That's our goal.
Yeah.
That's our goal, that's our objective. Look, you know, a lot of, and you think about healthcare in general, medicine and dentistry. But dentistry is worse because it's much more of a cottage industry. At least in medicine, you have hospitals, you have administrators, you have some business people. In dentistry, it's always been one dentist, one hygienist, one assistant forever. And it's only the last 10, 15 years that the dentists are starting to work together. Because every discipline, they're biased. We're all biased. If you're a surgeon, you're cutting. If you do veneers, you're doing veneers, and you're not looking at other things. I'm a biological dentist. Okay, I know how to take out amalgams. Maybe I'm not looking at these other specialties. So what we said to ourselves is, let's put all the specialists under one roof. Let's create an unreasonable hospitality approach. Blow people away so they can't believe they're in a healthcare facility. And let's take this connection of dentistry and medicine, we call DMI, but use the technology to connect the dots. What does that mean? Salivary diagnostics shows us biomarkers, inflammatory markers, salivary glucose, and P. gingivalis, which is the bacteria that travels all over the body when you have inflammation in the mouth. That then lends us to the next step, what can we do? So we have all of this kind of protocols we're building so that people go to the dentist more than their primary care physician. The hygiene room is the center of innovation. You were sitting there, you saw the big screens, you saw your skull, you saw your nasal passage, you saw your arch form, your condyles, your airway. We could diagnose sleep. We diagnose the microbiome issue. We can do that. We have worked with a company called Bristol Health. We work with another company, Oral Genome, for salivary diagnostics. Everything in that smile house is available to dentists today. So what we think we can do is shine a light on all these things, but how to integrate it, how to build it in a way that it's a true service model, focused on how do you improve health outcomes. We're working currently with about 4 integrative medicine groups in New York City, where we have this bidirectional referral system. And now we have to build a platform where it's easier to communicate back and forth all of our data, which we're going to build. So we're really starting, but it's the bias and it's the traditional thinking that always holds you back. That's human nature. Now you need a troublemaker like myself and people like me who's going to say, no, we're changing this. We want to break the rules. We want to do things where we borrow from outside industry. We borrowed from hospitality. We're borrowing more from what medicine does, which is put all the specialists under one roof. So on Friday mornings, all the data goes up on the screens. We have 14 docs, periodontist, orthodontist, prosthodontist, general dentist, hygienist, all looking at data sets where here's the diagnosis, here's the visualized solution, work backwards from that, choose the most appropriate care plan, customized precision for that patient. That's the optimal, and that's what we're looking to do with repeatability and reps.
Now, one of the things that I think every industry is dealing with, I know definitely in the health and wellness industry, that these things start to get more expensive. Yeah. And I think our government has this idea of like, well, if we just keep taxing the rich, everything will go fine. In reality, these things need to be subsidized, because then we could prevent a lot more of like what people start to deal with later on in life. You know, as we get older, you need more health care. How do we prevent that from happening? It's by subsidizing, I think, things like this. Exactly. If you get people to understand what they need now in their 20s and 30s, even as little kids, I think it will prevent people from having to deal with all this shit later on in life. I know in my industry, if we encourage more people to go to the gym, take care of themselves, and get in better shape, then the chances of you gaining weight later on in life and adopting these good habits now. I go into your office, I'm like, yeah, I asked Chrissy like 3 or 4 times, I go, when am I going back there? I got to go back there, because I want to have, we were talking about some of those old fillings and stuff. Yeah. That stuff will lead to bigger problems later on, right? Like some of those old fillings and stuff you were telling me. So I know there's probably plenty of people in my age demographic who have these older fillings and stuff they need to be re-looked at. Yeah. I think that should be subsidized, and I think people should start understanding what they should be doing to take care of themselves now before it gets too late.
Exactly right. Look, when we look at healthcare spend as a percentage of our gross domestic product, our GDP, 20%, $4 trillion. So we live in a sickness model, and what you're saying is spot on. How do we go upstream? How do we get earlier? So subsidization is, so Delta Dentals of this country, these insurance companies are now starting to pay through special coding, insurance coding for dentistry, not the cross-coding for medicine, because that's hard to get, but for dentistry to pay for salivary diagnostics, let's say. If I do a salivary diagnostic test today on oral genome, it takes 20 minutes, and I can detect MMP8, which is an inflammatory marker that shows inflammation in the body. Could be gum disease in the mouth, could be cardiovascular disease in the body. You haven't gone to your physician in 2.5 years, and you're just like everybody else. Check in with your physician, let him run your bloods. We think you could have some inflammation. And then, of course, if it's gum disease, we're on top of that. That's our world. But that's that connectivity, that bidirectional referral, where we can work with each other, because you're going to come to us more than you go to your primary care physician. So in summary, you got to get upstream. It's got to get subsidized in smart ways. Think about downstream, how much it's going to save. This country spends $1 billion a day treating cardiovascular disease. There it is.
Yeah.
So you're spending trillions of dollars a year. You're downstream of the sickness model. Everybody knows this. So think about Mark Hyman and all these terrific functional medicine people, all these new business models, integrated business models, that are now starting to shake it up and saying there's a much better way, not to part from Western medicine thinking. We still need pharmaceuticals. We still need acute care. But there are so many things we could do preventatively. Just like, I love that you're talking about fitness, because, we all live it, and we know how important motion is. It's one of the strongest pillars of longevity. It's 4 pillars, right? We're talking about movement. But if you're moving well and you're working out every day, and that bloodstream is moving, you then also have an eye on what's my nutrition. And then you're starting to eat well. And then when you're eating well and it's good motion, and your mind is in a good place, you can sleep great, right? You're getting into deep sleep, and let's say you take care of some of these structural issues. And then you're working on social connections and mindset. But there's a 5th pillar. The 5th pillar is oral health, because the mouth is part of the body. Do you know that over COVID, if you had periodontal disease, which is chronic inflammation in the mouth, which is, by the way, 70% of adults have some form of inflammation in the mouth. 70% of the age of 65 has periodontal disease, means bone loss associated with that inflammation. But if you had that, you were 4.8 times more likely to end up on a ventilator.
No shit.
Because that's another comorbidity factor of inflammation, layers on COVID. And all of a sudden the body's under attack. And all of a sudden the lungs shut down from an autoimmunity response. So these are the type of things people need to know about. And the more people know this, they're going to say, you know what? Going to the dentist is more than just fixing a tooth. That you now have a good understanding of the health of the mouth. And this goes from oral cancer detection, this goes from all the structural issues we're talking about, and of course, the gum disease, and also the pH of your mouth, which is really a lot to do with the environment we put our mouth under. And the same rules apply. How do you stay healthy in your body? Same exact thing for the mouth. It's the exact, because it's part of the body. It's one big ecosystem.
Well, I love to refer to the gut as the second brain. Right. And the mouth is the gateway to the second brain. So if we're constantly feeding, just the same way we feed our mind shit, we watch crazy shit online and we get sucked into social media, it's the same thing with our gut. If we're constantly putting shit in our mouth, it's going to lead to our gut, and it's going to lead to a more unhealthy body.
Exactly.
I think there's so much controversy. I just watched this, an old 60 Minutes, or a clip from an old 60 Minutes about sugar. And it was like from 2012, and they were talking about how sugar is basically like a poison at this point, right? Artificial sugars and stuff. What's your thoughts on sugar, and how do we approach that? Obviously, like, there's certain instances where, like, again, I have like 8 nieces and nephews. They want to go out and buy them ice cream and stuff, but you don't want them eating like that all the time. I think in doses it's fine, but I think we consume so much artificial sugar that it directly relates to our healthcare, right? We're the fattest country in the world, bar none,
70% pre-diabetic and diabetic, 55% obesity and more. And this is also with GLP-1s, which could really change the day. But sugar is the enemy. Now, we're human. Everybody likes, to have a little bit of dessert. you know what? If you had it 3 hours before, if you take a walk after dinner, if you don't, moderation is the key, if you don't overindulge. But the problem is that Americans are eating pounds of sugar a day. It's in everything, right? It's in the candy and the cake, and it's all this processed foods. There are 58 BS names of sugar that if you look at ingredients, you know, it says all these nonsense names. It's sugar.
Yeah.
It's not natural sugar. It's these artificial sweeteners. It's the sugar. And in the mouth, of course, that causes demineralization of the teeth because the bacteria breaks it down and turns the sugar into acid. And in the rest of the body, it's causing all kinds of glucose spikes, which means insulin spikes, which is insulin resistance and the early stages of type 2 diabetes. And so, you know, you're dealing with these metabolic diseases because of the epigenetics of what we put our body, what kind of environment we put it in. Flip that script. No sugar, high fiber, you know, 60-40, fiber to protein, strong protein. I work out, I sleep well, I watch my weight, I do mindfulness, and I do all this stress management from a standpoint. I have, you know, socialization and friends are important. And we all fall sideways, you know, we get headwinds with things. But if you have these high performance habits throughout your day and through your life, you get through all of those, right? All those headwinds.
100%.
You know, 100%. So, you know, knowledge is power, as we know, but we know so much more today. And there's no excuse. You go on these, listen to these podcasts, people like you that are getting this information out to people is so important, so relevant, so people can take action. And the truth is you can't start early enough. You want to go as early as possible,
Yeah.
and you can't, and it's never too late.
Well, one of the questions that I get sometimes is like, oh, I have a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. Should I have them start working out? I go, well, look at what they do naturally. They climb on shit, they're running around, they're picking stuff up, they're pulling stuff out of the cabinets. They're already doing it. Yeah. Now all you're going to do is organize it and make it more fun and put them around other kids who want to do the same thing. So I think what people don't understand is different types of sugar, right? Like, so if you are eating honey or any type of natural sugar, it's fine. Fruit, right? I eat a ton of fruit. I love fructose.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll eat pineapple, watermelon, all this shit all day long. People are like, well, yeah, but isn't that a lot of fruit? I go, no, it breaks down differently in your body.
It breaks down differently, and you have fiber associated with it. So, so there's an attachment to the fiber, which is so important for digestion, and it absolutely gets processed completely differently. But these high processed type foods, ultra high processed sugars, all of this is in high processed fructose. It's so bad for us. So we just got to say no to it. You know what? Look, one of the great things that is happening, you know, with our food services is we have completely flipped that food chart, and now we're looking at the relative importance of fiber and fruits and vegetables and more of this kind of diet that gets away from a lot of these inflammatory type foods and the grains. And so people know a lot more, science knows a lot more. Now it's just having the discipline. We all need to have a certain level of discipline to say, I prioritize my health. You prioritize your health. You prioritize your wake up. It's like, you know, your oral health routine. Well, you know what? I work out. When you don't work out for a couple of days in a row, tell me how you feel.
That was my next point.
Yeah.
I understand now, and I was just talking about this, that for most people that I interact with, I have to convince them to work out more. Yeah. And then the people I know who are obsessed with working out, no one's got to tell you to work out. Right. It's part of your day. It's like wiping your ass. It's like brushing your teeth. It's what you do on a daily basis. There's no arguing about it. And you do it because you know the benefits of the long term. Even when you don't want to do it, you're like, I got to do something because it'll just mentally and physically feel better than if I don't do it.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm trying to convince people of, like, how do we have this 360 approach to feeling better? When I tell you, I met those guys from the Pheno. Yeah. I enjoy brushing my teeth now. Yeah. It feels better. When my mouth is clean, there's no one in here that could say, oh, I feel way better when my teeth feel like shit. Oh, I feel way better when I'm fat. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. You instantly feel better when you start to take better care of yourself.
Exactly right.
Exactly. Even from your standpoint, I remember being a kid and my grandmother had dentures. She had all fake teeth. And I'm like, that's gross. I never want that. She'd like leave her teeth around. I'm like, oh, I hope that never happens to me. This is what people, I mean, that adds to a psychological response, and people don't want to be around. Like as a little kid, you're like, I don't want that shit. Right. What can people do now to start preventing these things?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it goes
because
back.
I think some of it is we used to think that like that's the inevitable, but it's not.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. No, quite the opposite.
Yeah.
No, the truth of the matter is it's all of these things that drives oral health. So we have a whole oral health regimen guide that lays out, these are the tools you use, this is the order by which you use it. You had it when you were at Smile House, and you left with a nice goodie bag, and that's what everybody leaves with. So here's the tools. This is what you have to do. Because what happens in the mouth, we have 700 species and 8 billion bacteria in the mouth. Second biggest microbiome. You talk about the gut being the second brain. Exactly. Well, what do you think seeds the gut? The mouth. The mouth seeds the gut. Actually, the bacteria from the mouth works its way right through the GI tract. We used to think that the stomach acids would destroy it. 1 out of 3 of those bacteria. So if you have P. gingivalis, which is there's 7 pathogenic bugs, you find it in the cells of leaky gut. How'd it get there? You find it in the amyloid plaque of Alzheimer's patients. How'd it get there? You find it in the arteries of cardiovascular patients in the intermedia. That's 20 years old. We figured that out, plus. So how it happens is there's a super highway of the cardiovascular system, and as you said, the mouth is the top of the digestive tract. Okay, so once you understand that all of these systems connect, and this ecosystem, when one system goes down, I have inflammation in my mouth. I have periodontal disease because I don't think it's important to really have oral health gain, which is I'm using a great brush, I'm getting between with maybe a water flosser, I'm getting in between floss, I'm eating right, I'm not swallowing a lot of sugar, I'm getting good sleep so I'm not clenching and grinding my teeth, and if I have a sleep problem, I'm doing something about it. It's all these things lead up to our health. But what do we have to be? We have to be proactive. We have to get after it. And it's not going to come to us. And a lot of it is, think about the knowledge that young mothers have. Young mothers now have so much knowledge of making sure that the kids develop properly. One of the biggest problems early on age is when a child develops more of a mouth breathing while the jaws are developing. What will happen, the jaws are going to be small. You're going to have a vaulted palate, because the mouth is like a funnel. And so form follows function. As you're using that functionally, the jaw becomes like this V-shaped funnel, narrow, to get the air in, except the mouth wasn't designed for breathing. The nose was designed for breathing. And that's why we have this incredible filter system in the nose and the ability to release when we nasal breathe nitric oxide, which is critically important for performance, critically important for vasodilation and health, and mitochondrial activity that they know now. So all of a sudden, the dots are getting connected between what we can do as dental professionals and how we can relate to our physician colleagues to help diagnose and get to these problems early. Because when the jaw is small, well, the orthodontists today, what do? They expand and they get everything wider and forward so the tongue can move forward, and that the kids open up. When you expand, you're also opening up the nasal passages. And we can see now from our CAT scans that we take routinely, we can see if there's nasal obstruction. If somebody has a deviated septum and can't breathe through their nose, the word is, you got to get that fixed. Because you cannot mouth breathe when you're sleeping at night, because you're lining yourself up to all of these kind of issues. You're not letting the body repair itself. So, it's just that we start understanding today how to connect these dots.
Well, there's also, aside from the dysfunction, there's also deformation of like what the jaw should look like.
Exactly.
Right? So what could parents do early on?
Yeah.
Right? You said, I thought it was very interesting. You said the breastfeeding over the bottle.
Yeah, that's right.
I think I know that's a very controversial topic with a lot of people. People are like, oh, I don't like to breastfeed. You don't need to breastfeed.
Science is out on this.
Yeah, my mother is like a diehard. I have 8 nieces and nephews, and my mom's always like, no, you can't do anything but breastfeed. But there's so much to that. Yeah,
they know.
There's so much to it.
The studies are showing 6 months and greater, and you're going to have great development of the jaw and the mandible. So the maxilla is up here. The suckling effect and the tongue, what happens to get the milk out of the breast, the tongue is thrusting forward, pushing everything forward, up and wide. Think about it. It's the force in this developing jaw. And in the middle of our palate is the suture line. What's the suture line? It's filled with stem cells. What do those stem cells do? They're going to form bone. What's the pressure going to do? It's going to widen. What's the air pressure going to do coming in? It's going to narrow and vault. So as parents, they have a choice. You better watch and make sure your child is nasal breathing and doesn't have rhinitis, and you're taking care of it. And you're making sure that they're breastfeeding, and the foods that they eat, this is the other point, you're putting force on your back molars, which also helps develop jaw size. We know this now. This was a great book written by Sandra Kahn, Paul Ehrlich, called Jaws. John Muse in England 40 years ago, 30 years ago, now his son has taken it up, got thrown out of the orthodontic specialty community because he's ringing the bell 30 years ago about this jaw development and how he moved everything forward and wider. And it was the opposite because everybody in orthodontics, and even in the United States today, they look too much at tooth-to-tooth relationship, not on aesthetics and jaw formation. But it's moving now in the right direction. So we can take corrective action, but it's the parents, it's the mamas that really understand this. There's such a great book James Nestor wrote about 4 or 5 years ago. Now he's has a new one coming out next year, that he exposed this information. He's such a fantastic writer, but he's made sleep and airway a personal passion, and he talks a lot about this, and he's done a great job at it. So people now have the information to take action on this.
Yeah, I think, I mean, listen, from the health standpoint, from the aesthetic standpoint, we were talking about privilege, and everybody for the past 5, 6 years has been, privilege, this one has privilege, and that. I think pretty privilege is a real thing, and I think aesthetics are so important to you progressing in life. Right. It's not just about like, oh, I want to look attractive. There's something to be said about it. I think there's, we see the forest through the trees that, hey, you're more attractive and you're more appealing and you're more successful when you look a certain way. Right. So exercise is super important, right? It shows people that you take care of yourself, that there's some level of discipline built into this person. And then also with, the aesthetics of your mouth and your jaw. Like I saw a lot of videos on TikTok of these guys talking about how important it is. And, yes, you could blame your parents, but at a certain point, you got to start taking these things into your own hands.
Personally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for yourself, I mean, obviously, I think you're such a great advocate for this because you walk the walk, you talk the talk, you clearly understand what's going on. Were you always into the gym? Were you always a health nut? Or was this something that kind of developed later on?
No, I played 3 sports in high school, but my big sport was lacrosse. Mm-hmm. I had this opportunity to go to a school, Cornell, bunch of Long Island guys, a couple of Maryland guys, played together, some Canadians, freshman year. We were freshmen, had to play freshmen. Sophomore year, we lost in the quarterfinals. Junior year, we lost in the semifinals, Division I lacrosse. Senior year, undefeated national champs. And the guys who were sophomores ended up having the longest win streak in NCAA history of any sport, 42 games. So guys are sophomores. We have a fun reunion coming up. But the truth is that experience set me. Because what I learned was that life's a team sport. And when you really love your teammates, you love the people you're being around, and you can set a good vision, that's when the magic happens. And we had this amazing coach, Richie Moran, and these unbelievable guys that are still my closest super pals. And it set me up because I get into healthcare and specifically dentistry, and it's a solo sport, and it's completely siloed. And I said, we got to change this. And so I've been working at it for 3.5 decades to rebrand, but really to, how do we reinvent? At this point I have a whole bunch of patents on medical devices and stuff, but I'm so excited about what I'm doing now. One is I'm doing it with my 2 sons, but also to get the word out because, as a scientist, and my background was microbiology and immunology, as scientists and be able to kind of provide care for people, we can really educate them. And the whole thing about Smilehouse is educating our patients in a way that it's going to be engaging, in an environment that it's fun to be in. The best compliment is what I heard from you is that you enjoyed being there. And that's what I want people to leave with. I want people to feel this was an unbelievable experience. Now I know we're doing something. And that really goes for all of healthcare. how do we provide an amazing service, but also to educate our patients so they take action.
Well, what you said before about the unreasonable hospitality, obviously one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
And I think everyone, if you do anything in life, you should read that book, because it shows you, whether I'm staying in a hotel, I go see my dentist, I come to a gym, it's the experience that people remember, and what we do everything based off feel. I want to go back because I felt good there. I felt comfortable there. I know it's something I need, so I want to go back there. Same thing at a hotel. I felt comfortable there. I like the environment. I like the way they treated me there. So we do all these things off feel. And I think when you provide that type of experience, then you'll always be successful. I think there's a level of care that people put into it when you start to really love what you do. You clearly see you love what you do and you want to provide the best experience, and I think you're doing a really good job of that. I think that's another side of being great. You're really good at dentistry and you understand immunology and biology and all these things, but you also have a great sense of business. Where'd that come from? Was that always?
That came from my dad, because I always say that as a young growing up child, it's what you learn around the dinner table. Mm-hmm. So my father was in a business, and his whole family were doctors and furriers, fur merchants, and it's a crazy industry because it was very disorganized, and everything was on a marker, everything was an IOU, and what I thought, I used to hear the conversations, but what happened was there was so much what I perceived as conflict of people owing each other money and not getting along that I said, I'm not going into business. So I go into Cornell that has very good business courses. I didn't take one business course, I'm taking all science courses, and I realized when I get out of dental school and open up a practice, I realize I love business because you're creating high performance teams, which is athletics. And so I realized then that's why I started a few companies within oral health, but on the entrepreneurial side of me. But my business stuff came from my dad, the work ethic that I saw from him, and my coaches from sports, who inspired us, to be the best we can be.
I think team sports are so important. I wrestled all through high school and college, but being able to be the individual out there adding to what the team does, I think there is nothing more that kids need than something along those lines. Being a part of something that's a greater good. We were just talking about completely separate business on the last podcast I did. We were talking about the WWE and how, I don't know how they do it, but they instill in a lot of the guys who are really high performers and are really successful wrestlers, that the business is more important than the individual. Now the individual adds to it. So one of the things that I'm trying to do in the fitness industry, and I've been doing for the past 10 years, is I have this big event when we do a health and wellness expo. And I realize that there are people like you out there who are in the dentistry world, and there are doctors who are doing their thing, and there are trainers doing their thing. We're all trying to say the same thing. Right. We're all pushing the same message. Hey, if we get everybody feeling better and looking better, then we have a better community. Right. And are there any conventions or any meetups for dentists each year that you guys go to? Because I sympathize with you, right? You're like, I own this business, I'm a dentist, and I'm siloed away from every other dentist. Why I have other trainers come in, all those people who just left here are all other trainers and stuff. I want people to integrate. I work with different gyms. Last year we took out 10 gym owners here in New York. I paid for dinner, and I go, guys, this is just an opportunity for everybody to commiserate together and share ideas, because we're not gonna do it alone. We need to do it with everyone. Exactly. Everybody's got to get together. So my event is just that. I want doctors and nutritionists and dentists and trainers and physicians to come together and say, hey, we're all pitching the same idea. We all want everybody to be healthier. How do we do this? Right. Because we're not going to do it alone.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but you got to start somewhere, just what you're doing. Yeah. And you're starting somewhere. And then you're creating forums and get-togethers where people start sharing information. Mm-hmm. And everybody brings their strength to the table, their superpowers. That happens in dentistry. But when you have to change conventional thinking, it's not so easy and it's not so fast. So it's people that are willing to get out of their comfort zone, break the rules. It's really the innovator's mindset, right? You're thinking that way. I with a smile, I say it's troublemakers. So I have a podcast that I do with Maria Filipova and David Kochman from Henry Schein, and we're starting it up again soon. And it's all about that. It's all about bringing eyeballs and shining a light on a lot of the things I'm talking about. So David is leading. Henry Schein is the largest dental company in the world, public company, and it's an amazing company. And they have an initiative called The Bridge. What's The Bridge? The Bridge is where we connect dentistry and medicine, dental medical integration. And it's all these things that we're working on Smile House to get to a point where we're sharing this information. Then there are these other companies that are coming up that are AI driven, that is really going deep into medicine and dentistry. So how do we do things in dentistry like I'm talking about with biomarkers and share it? So it's happening. It just never happens as fast as we want. But you know, the old expression, we are the company we keep, and we start surrounding ourselves with us like-minded folks, and then all of a sudden, we're having fun and we're moving the needle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important. I think when you're enjoying what you're doing, it doesn't feel like work. And I think that's where a lot of people start to get discouraged, is that they're not doing something they love. And I encourage people all the time. I'm like, just do something you love. And for me, I could never go into the dental world. I'm just grossed out by people's mouths and stuff.
Well, I could go in the gym world. I want you to know that. I'm in there every morning. I could easily do it.
What's your routine look like?
Oh, let's see.
Because you've been doing this for
cyclist. I'm a cyclist. It's numero uno. But I also appreciate, you know, being fit and lifting, and you know, the fact that as we age, we lose a certain percentage of our immune response goes down, our muscle mass goes down, and so critically important how we eat. So for 25 years, I've been like really good on diet. And yeah, there were times when I was pure vegan, but then of course, you know, I kind of fall into pescatarian. But from a fitness standpoint, you know, I'll put on anywhere from 100 and off-season indoors, 120 miles a week to 200 miles a week in the summertime. And I got my riding guys up in Westchester. We gravel ride anytime I wanted to go gravel. I have an extra gravel bike. And we go up to Katona and Bedford and ride on the gravel roads, the horse roads. And then I live in Colorado also, so I have all my biking buddies there. And then we take trips that we go ride, a whole group of us. So it's like golf, but we're on bikes and we're getting fit. And then, you know, you got to stretch. So I do yoga at least twice a week. And I do that with my wife, and you got to stretch. You got to lengthen.
What people don't even realize is through this enjoyment, you're creating community, and you're creating that, what I think is the second most important pillar next to taking care of yourself, is the mental aspect of it.
100%.
Being around other people, doing something you enjoy, that is such a stress reliever. I think the number one killer, and you could attest to this, right? That stress is the number one thing that'll kill most people. And when you never have that release, when you never get the opportunity to be around other people and to enjoy life just at the purest level, I mean, you're going to drive yourself insane. I think that's why we're seeing so much bullshit in the world. So many people are upset and angry, and everybody's like chasing money, but no one chases a good time anymore. I feel like we come from a different generation where I looked forward to the weekends because it was an opportunity to let loose. Now everybody's, I don't drink a lot, and I told you before I smoke cigars, but it's, for me, it de-stresses me more than anything else. Like on the weekends, I could go and meet with my family or my brothers, my friends. We'll go smoke a cigar, and it's an opportunity to relax. And I am, if I look at my Garmin, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty fucking relaxed right now. And everybody's like, oh, it raises your stress levels. I'm like, not me, I feel great. Yeah. But even alcohol, I think we've moved so far away from alcohol. I'm not telling anybody to drink. I don't even drink. Yeah. But there are people, there was a chance and an opportunity for people to congregate and get together. Now I think we're missing out on that opportunity. Yeah. So I encourage people, go out and work out. Right. Go have a drink with somebody. Go have dinner with somebody. I think we're moving away from community so far, and we're like on our phones all the time.
100%. You're so right.
Yeah.
And we have to be intentional about it. You know, we have these people, so, you know, guys you grew up in high school and then college and maybe teammates and business friends and then people you meet. And then you forget to reach out to somebody. Mm-hmm. And, you know, with guys, a lot of times you haven't spoken to somebody in a year or 2 years and you pick it right up. Yes. But you know what? Just checking in with your friends and just going for lunch or grabbing a quick drink, but not even a drink, but just getting together, having dinner. you got to be intentional. And
Yeah.
it is so important. These social connections, look, they did these great studies. Dan Buettner did it, right? And they looked at the blue zones, and they looked at in Japan, and at the centenarians and the people living over 100 years of age. And they looked at, of course, all of these pillars of longevity. But the number one thing that they said was translated from all these 5 different blue zones, and the most important things is social connections.
Mm-hmm.
Social connections. And even though they did all the workout and the fitness and they ate great, when they shared financial risk, like somebody had a problem with a crop, but they shared they knew that they were going to be covered. So to me, in life, you go into business, you go into partnerships, you go into relationships. When you know that person has your back, when you know, I got you, I'm a rope holder. You hanging off the side of the cliff, I'm not letting go. Mm-hmm. That's my teammate.
Yeah.
When you have friends like that we can count probably on a hand, we know we got something special. And it's that mindset that we're there for each other.
And one of the things why I continue to push group fitness so much, and it's a pillar of my business, is because you will push 30 to 40% harder for somebody else than you will for yourself. Right. If I go to the gym by myself and work out by myself, I won't push myself as hard as if I'm with somebody else.
Right with you.
And if I need to get something done with them physically, then I'm going to go so much harder because I want them to win too. And I think we've deviated from this idea that we are a village all the time, no matter where you are. It's in your business or your city. I think this city has become so far removed from that. I remember looking at New York as like, if you're a New Yorker, you back up other New Yorkers. You tell somebody you're from New York, you're a part of this club that you don't even know. Right. Now I feel like we're missing that a little bit.
I think you're right. I think one of the elements that we're also missing, and that goes hand in hand with everything you're talking about, is kindness. Is literally to be kind to each other. In other words, like, it's easy, like, know somebody and you do something nice, that's kindness, that's nice. But it's the people that we know and the people either in our family or of our friends that you just go that extra mile for them. Mm-hmm. And it's not about me. It's not that ego's got to come out of the equation. We're living in such a weird time where, I don't want to get into politics, but where this attitude, this pervasive attitude to be nasty, mean, aggressive is just so bad. And that's why everybody is revolting on this crap. It's just unacceptable.
Well, you're a little bit older than me, so you've seen the country and the world evolve a little bit more. Yeah. What do you think that is that we don't have any regard for human life anymore? Yeah. I remember somebody like dying in high school or at my old job, and everybody's like, oh, we should collect some money, and everybody should go to the wake. Now people don't give a shit. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, it's like you're working in a cancer ward and you're seeing people pass away, and then you get inured by it. It just doesn't rock you like it needs to. It's pervasive right now. It's the mindset, and it's hopefully, I'm a big believer, and I'm a terrible optimist. I'm such an optimist that the pendulum will swing back. We're going to see it. We're going to see it in the midterm elections, and we're going to take back this attitude of civility, of temperance, of staying calm, of don't overreacting, of listening to each other. Mm-hmm. When we had these past presidents, they worked across the aisle. They worked together to get shit done. They now want to kill each other. And you can understand it because they're so polar opposite. It has to change. Mm-hmm. And the only way it's going to change is we have a wonderful thing called an electoral college, and we have this, this basic of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and we have this that's going to protect us. So people have to say this is enough, because it plays into our personal life as much as we want to stay away from it. We live in this. Yeah. The policies that people are going to set, who are in office, who are the politicians, are going to impact us and our next generations. So you got to get active and you got to get voiceful. And we saw it in Minnesota, and we saw what those people did, and it happened all over the country. And people stood up and they said, "This is unacceptable. We are not going to put up with this." Do you remember another time in history where politicians had so much? I don't remember. Really, politicians having so much of an impact on my day-to-day life.
Yeah. Where it came really clear, and I'm looking, I was talking to my friends about this, and I'm looking at these Epstein files similar to when Watergate happened, and where it's just the tip of the iceberg right now. And it's quite a lightning rod moment where all of a sudden the light is shining on these very powerful people, and what they're getting, you know, kind of sucked into that vortex of doing things that are criminal behavior. And so it was the same thing here. You had a president in Watergate that was doing criminal behavior, and now we have a president that parallels that kind of behavior. So, you know, it becomes, people become aware of what's happening. This is the lightning rod moment where everything starts to change back, and the pendulum and starts swinging back to what I would think of as more of a normal place, and that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think we're all pretty hopeful for that.
We're hopeful for that.
I mean, you're a very accomplished guy. You know, you know a lot about a lot. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
Well, the best piece of advice that I got was from a great friend who built an amazing business, and said to me a quote that I just about said already, because I deeply believe it, that when you have a vision, a big dream, dream bigger, because it's more fun to do it with the people you love. And when you do, that's when the magic happens. And so as you think about the person you're going to marry, the family you're going to build, the friends you're going to surround yourself with, it's the alignment of your value system. These are the people that you love, that you surround yourself with. And I will say, to flip that a little bit, that when you find yourself in situations in business and you're getting involved with people that don't align with your value system, do not second guess yourself. Listen to your intuition and walk as fast as you can, because you have to be with people that you really feel that you can build deep relationships, because that's how you build stuff. And if you can't build those relationships, then it's not going to work. It's just that simple.
You know, I don't know if it's my mind or my gut, but there's definitely people who I work with, my team here, that it just feels right.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people try to force things that don't feel right, even if it's too good. Sometimes it feels too good to be true, and you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But I think having the right people around you means
good.
so much.
So good.
Yeah.
You build it, and that's why you're successful, and you're just really getting really going. You surround yourself with these kind of good people, and I feel the same way. I'm very fortunate, and I have my two sons that I'm involved with.
Yeah.
And, you know, just so you know, we all played lacrosse at Cornell, so pretty good. They were pretty close. They
Yeah.
didn't go into dentistry, but they went into the family business.
Yeah.
You know, and my wife's
But
very involved.
would you say they're responsible for kind of helping you make this turn towards this new integrated?
100%. 100%. I'm involved with a lot of different things within the industry, and they got freed up in their time with their Twice company. They had these new partners, and so Cody got 100% freed up. Julian got about 50% freed up, and they said they really wanted to do this. And I came back to them every day for about 2 weeks. I said, "Do you really want to do this? Because unless you're doing," because I was walking down the road of doing something like this with another group, and I realized our values didn't align. Not at all. And I put it on hold. I said, I'm not going after it. And when they told me they wanted to do it, once I knew they were in, I said, you got to be in. That means you're with me. We're doing it together. Because it's a very big deal. 1 to 2 is huge, because you're building that whole scalable model, systems and processes. Why I brought this wonderful young person who's going to be my chief of staff, because you need somebody to help integrate these things. And so once they said you were in, I said, we go. And I bought a space, and we built it out. You saw it, you know. And
beautiful.
Yeah, and I really wanted people to feel like, you know, this is like a members club. This is cool. And my wife Stacy's into the design and the look and feel, and she
Is
helped
she the
me
one who designed everything?
with the architects.
Okay.
Yeah, with Laura.
It's got a
Pembroke.
great feel to it.
Yeah, it's got a great feel, and our mutual friend Vito Errico is Stacy's best pal, and my best pal. I thought you were Vito from Equinox.
Yeah, Equinox. Yeah.
So he's like a super friend,
Yeah.
and he helped like just develop some of the looks and feel. He's amazing. Vito's amazing, and you know he built that Equinox. He's a dear friend, and he was very helpful in fine tuning a few things. But it really was a very big group effort with a vision. And my rule that I set forth was this. The rule of opposites. Whatever's been done in healthcare, whatever's been done in dentistry, we're doing the opposite. If you expect 4 people to be sitting behind a desk with their heads down looking at computers, we're changing that. It's going to be like a members club. You come in, you're getting received, you feel like you're in a beautiful living room, everything's kind of warm and cozy. That's what we got. And that's what we did. And that's our brand. We're making the Uptown office look a little bit like that. But once we get to 2, then you really figure out how do we build and scale.
Well, I mean, people always think that some people are stuck in this old mentality.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of people who don't want to see this change. But, I mean, you're a little bit older. You've been in business for a very long time.
Yeah, guys like me, they were retiring.
Yeah.
I'm
and
going
that's-
the other way.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You're
ride
building-
with guys
you're
20
build-
years younger than me. I'm going. My hands work great. I'm trying to coach more than actually do the dentistry.
Yeah.
But I've only worked 2 days a week clinically for 25 years. So 8 days a month of real clinical. I've always led a team. You know, I always had other prosthodontists like myself. I'm a specialist in crown and bridge. But then I have periodontists and orthodontists and all these great hygienists. So we have a nice big team. And everybody brings their superpowers.
What's the one thing, if you could only ask your employees one thing when you're hiring them, what would you ask them? Just to figure out who they are and if your lives align or your values align.
I want to figure out their ability for change, for resilience, for the ability to think outside the box, for them to always stay optimistic when the wind is in your face. Because when the wind's in your back and everything's great, everybody's wonderful. But it's when you get challenged, how do they deal with challenge? So I love the athletes. I love people who've done sports. Love that. Because I know they've dealt with that headwind. I know they've dealt with how do we deal with a loss, with an upset. You know, are they throwing their hands up and do the OMGs, or are they digging in deeper? You know, and I always think of, you know, how we can take risk. And some people are very risk adverse. And, you know, in some roles it's fine. But I'm really looking to build a team and really building a team for growth. I love the athlete mentality.
There's a great book by a guy I actually had on the podcast, and he spoke at my event last year. It's called Attributes.
Yeah.
And it's an incredible book, and he talks about that.
Yeah.
How he was a recruiter for the Navy SEALs.
Oh,
His name's Rich Davini, and he was trying to figure out, because the first thing they would go after is high-level performers, D1 schools or Ivy League schools who played a sport, who understand what it's like to be on a team, who have these skills and they're smart and they have everything you would think they have. But the attributes is what most people need to develop on their own. So skills you could teach someone. You could teach somebody how to be a better dentist. You can't teach somebody how to be a better person. No. And the attributes that like you have to work on your own, patience and, you know, kindness. These are things that like you need to develop from the inside out.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.
So
and probably learned early on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah. So what's next? I mean, you guys have the space downtown, you have the space uptown.
We have the space downtown. We are working on a lot of cool stuff. We're working on this connection of dentistry and medicine, DMI, where next time you're going to come in, you're going to take blood pressure, pulse ox. We're going to do a little finger prick, and we're going to look at a bunch of biomarkers. That I'm going to take that information, lipids, C-reactive protein. We're all going to do A1C to make sure your glucose levels are okay. And we're going to share that information with your physician because they understand that. So it's some basic blood panels. We start off with the salivary diagnostic to see if you have any inflammatory marker to then go to that. So we're building out this whole protocol that then with Henry Schein, we're going to bring this out to the rest of the dental community. That's the way to scale this thing where dentistry is elevated. And there's things that we're figuring out. I think there's going to be an opportunity where, you know, we're using AI to develop some really cool proprietary things as we think about, haven't really figured out how to scale more than just the traditional model of CapEx and building multiple offices. So just kind of figuring that out and just working with really good people who want to see healthcare change.
Yeah, how far do you think we are away from this becoming the new norm, right? Because when I went to I remember being a kid, and I actually have like trauma from this. Like I hated going to the dentist. My dentist was such a prick when I was a kid. and he was so nasty and rude, and like it was just like they drill into your teeth and they put the black.
Yeah, amalgam.
I don't know, understand how when I was a kid, I guess because I was eating sugar and I was fat and
you
out
had
of
some
shape,
cavities.
I had cavities all over my mouth.
Yeah,
and
ditto.
yeah, and now as I cleaned up my diet, I don't have,
Yeah,
knock
yeah,
on wood,
yeah, none.
I don't have any.
Yeah, just maybe old restorations breaking down. But
Yeah. How far away do you think it is from us becoming a society where that's not the norm anymore?
You know, what happens because of dietary changes, fluoride in water, fluoride not in water, is going to knowledge of, you know, why we grind our teeth. Dentists becoming more of detectives to understand root cause analysis. A lot of stuff we do at Smile House is all about figuring out the why. Oh, you got a restoration, you got some decay, but we're going to go deep to figure out what's that microbiome, what's your diet like, and why are you getting decay. So the profession has to move from a reactive model to more proactive upstream wellness model. So how long will that take is probably, I would say, with some help from AI and knowing the adoption, probably 10 to 15 years, where it's, you know, you can say 50% of the practices. But there will be 5% of the practices, I would say, over the next 5 years, maybe a little bit less, but there's a chance that they start adopting these new technologies. Salivary diagnostics, this capillary blood, the CAT scans, the CT scans. I've heard, you know, this whole argument that you shouldn't be doing CT scans. It's equivalent to 7 x-rays, and we see everything more than anything before. And now we have AI reading our CT scans, a company called DiagnoCat, which is amazing. So we take the guesswork, because some of the CT scans are 3-dimensional. You got to learn how to read them. And, you know, I'm multi-specialty, so we can read them. But, you know, there's so much development in software in our learnings. So maybe it will be quicker. You know, you can go back to this knowledge, and the singularity guys on the West Coast talk about this in 1950. How long did it take to double the medical knowledge? And it took over 50 years.
Wow.
In 2026, how long does it take to double the medical knowledge? 77 days. And that's today's knowledge, right?
That's
so
crazy.
What do we got? We got quantum computing. We have all of this amazing AI that's generating all this data. So it's quite amazing when you think about, you know, the rapid pace of innovation. I mean, you miss things for a month. What is happening? You got software companies that were worth gazillions, trillions of dollars. All of a sudden, their stock is off the, you know, on the ledge.
Yeah.
You know, the oracles of the world, because you have AI figuring it out, and, you know, software development. So everything is really moving quickly.
It's funny how fast something like that could turn around, but how slow it takes to turn the industry around.
Yeah,
it's almost like
exactly.
trying to turn around a battleship. You're like,
Right.
well, if we know now this helps everyone out, why isn't everybody doing it? But you're not your average dentist. You understand
No,
a lot
I gotta
more. You
push.
give a shit
Yeah,
a lot more than the average dentist.
Yeah.
I feel like, I mean, for years, you go to even a regular doctor and they're just kind of doing the...
Yeah, Western medicine. But it's like that with the
Old
integrative
bullshit,
medicine guys who really, you know, started ringing the bell. I got to give a guy named Mark Hyman a lot of credit. He's kind of the original man. He's the OG, and he at Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, and he started the whole integrative medicine, functional medicine approach. And now you have a whole crew of people developing business models around this. He's involved with function. But, you know, things are changing. I think the good news is things are changing. Business models are changing. In dentistry, what's happening is that business people now can own dental practices. That's existed for 30 years. But now it's becoming very popular because the money got behind it and the private equity guys got behind it. And there's a great advantage to that, because when you have business people with the right leadership and you have a focus on clinical care and new technology, that's going to positively move the needle.
Yeah, I think a lot of these financial firms now buying into what everyone's doing.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, oh, there's money
see
in
the
fitness,
opportunity.
there's
Yeah.
money in dentistry.
Right,
We should
right.
get behind this.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, listen, it's been
Great.
incredible having you on here, Doc. Thank you so much. I'm
Great to be
looking
here,
so
Danny.
forward to coming back down there. I highly recommend everybody check out Smile House. Whether you work in the industry or you do not, you guys are changing the game. It's very impressive. I was blown away by the hospitality and the business side of it, but also the medical side of it.
Thank you.
I look forward to it. I hope everybody could enjoy it. Hopefully you guys will have clinics all over the country, all over the world soon, and everybody could enjoy the fruits of your hard work and labor, and then we could go riding sometimes too.
I'd look forward to
Yeah.
that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Guys, as always, like, share, subscribe, check out at Smilehouse on Instagram, right?
At Smilehouse, at Dr. Jon Levine, and smilehouse.co.
All right.
Bam.
Like, share, subscribe with a friend, and always stay strong.